Hello, my name is John Moody. I've been an artist nearly all of my adult life, dealing in oils, watercolours, you name it, I've tried it. This video you're going to watch now, hopefully anyway, is about wet on wet technique, which is a watercolour way of working that gives you a lot of atmosphere. And I hope you enjoy it, hope you get something from the video, and see you in the next one. If not, bye. Hello. Right, today it's wet on wet watercolour. What does that mean? Well, for those of you who don't know, it means putting water down, clean water down on the paper, and then putting paint on top of that, and the paint runs on the water, so it sort of diffuses out in all directions. It's very good for atmosphere in watercolour, especially in the background, and then you paint details on the top. So just a quick word about watercolour paper in particular. If you try and buy cheap stuff at the dollar stores, it really isn't very good and you'll struggle to do anything decent. So try and find an art store and buy some half decent watercolour paper. It's really important. There'll be a video later on at some point about materials, but not now. Brushes, as long as they're reasonable, you can get away with it for a while, unless you've got a lot of money and you want to buy some sables. And paints, again, if you just buy the really cheap watercolour paints, they could fade, they could just disappear in a year or so, you know. Don't want people coming back and complaining. So buy yourself a small pan of decent watercolour paints, you know, and they'll last you a long time. You'll make your money back, hopefully. All right, so let's get going. So I'm just going to put some clean water on the paper and try not to miss any areas. If you miss an area and it stays dry, it'll look like a spaceship in the sky if you're doing a landscape. So I'm going to wet down 3/4 of the way down the paper. And this is going to be sky all around here and some land at the bottom. I'm not going to wet the ground yet. I'll leave that. If you want a nice horizontal horizon, you could put a very faint pencil line in, but you know, you don't really want to have too much that you need to try and rub out. Okay, let's just whack straight in. Warm colour, I think you can see that. That's a yellow, but that's too bright, that's too garish yellow. So you need to sort of tone it down a bit with a bit of warmth, maybe to make kind of an orange colour. That's probably better. Okay, so we're going to put some of this in. I'm just going to scumble, it's an art word, across. I'm leaving some white areas as well, and I'm making it not horizontal, I'm just sort of taking it across. And then before things start drying, which they do very quickly, I'm going to put some blue in, but I'm not going to rub it into the orange, because if you rub it into the orange you're going to end up with a grubby green colour. And I'm just putting that around it and down here towards the horizon line. Don't overdo it, just place it on and then leave it. Now you can do some things here. You can actually tilt your board and let it run. Oh look, there's a dry patch. Can you see it there? So I'm going to get rid of that before too long. Right, so we've got that in there now. I'm going to just do a third one while it's still wet, a darker blue. And I can put that in there as well. because the colours will actually fade as they dry. So you've got a fair amount of paint on there now. I think we'll leave that there. You can actually, I'm just going to shift this a minute, tip the board even at an angle, and you can even blow on it. And if you look closely, I think you can see this here, it's starting to run in this direction. You can actually get kind of like rain effects, which I'll probably do in another video. Now you can just help it along a little bit. Don't put too much fresh new water on. You're just, from now on, it actually makes it worse. So you really don't want to be messing with it once it's like this. You just want to leave it to dry. If you want to play around with the clouds, the time to do it is once it's dry, not now. I'm just going to blow it. Okay, I'm going to put that back from there, probably knock the camera. That's all right. Okay. You could, I'm going to do it now, it wasn't intended, but you can put in objects like if I wanted a mountain or something, misty mountain, I could put the basic shape of it and work on it later. My brush isn't really wet now, it's kind of tacky paint, because if I dipped it in the water and then put it on there with a puddle, it would give you a kind of a tide mark, which you really don't want. So it's a bit of practice, you know. You perhaps get some small bits of paper and try different clouds. Right. I've got a little pad here at the side, tissue, and I'm just blotting with my brush so that I don't put too much water back on the painting. It really would make a problem for you now. So right, we'll leave that like that for now. Let that dry for a bit. You can make them really dramatic, but you've literally only got 2 or 3 minutes to do all this before the paper's gone past a certain point, and you'll actually not improve anything. I'm just padding out a little bit of shapes on the mountain while I'm at it. If you're very brave, you can do that in the sky as well with the clouds, but we won't do that for now. There's a couple of marks there and there which are a little bit too harsh, but we can work with those later on. So now we've actually got a bit of light coming through. Okay, so we'll move on. When you get to a certain point, it's probably easier to just prop your panel up, mainly because you don't want things running that way into the sky. Okay, you want them coming this way, if anything. So I'm going to repeat what we've just done up in the sky, as if it's some kind of reflection on it. So in goes the orange, which actually is more orange than the first lot, but that won't matter too much. Put it in there. I'll tone that down because I forgot to wet the paper, didn't I? I don't know. You probably guessed by now I'm not exactly a very young artist. I've been at this now for 50 years, 50, 60, yeah, I'm 70 something now. So it's my lifetime's experience or something like that. Okay, so we've got this warm colour, and I'm going to put the blue that we had, the darker blue, in and let it run down. I might even make it run down more. You can see it now, it's moving. Okay. Again, don't mess with it, let it do it, because it'll probably do it better than you can. Right, get down to about there. Then I can start to level it out a bit. Just watch at the edges. Sometimes you'll get tide marks appearing at the edges that creeping back into your painting, and if you're working over one side you don't notice the other side, you know, it can be a bit of a pain. Okay, so now I'm just going to put in a darker tone. All I'm doing it over on the side is mixing up some blue, and I want to try and tone it down a bit. So I've put a bit of brown in there. Okay, oops, that's purple, that wouldn't help. Right, here we go. So we've got some brown. Now down here, what I'm going to do is just put in some land. Now that's quite wet. That will fade quite dramatically. Right, now this is where you have to kind of watch everything carefully. I'm just drying my brush on my piece of paper, really dry, and I'm going to get a different brush. I'm going to get something like this, which is fairly stiff. I'm just going to diffuse that white line. It's up there. Okay. All of this is an undercoat. On top of this goes your detail, which I will start to show you in the second video if you get a chance to come along and look at the next video, which should be at there should be a link to it at the end of this video, which if you just click on it you should go to it, and it will be called the watercolor wet on wet number 2 or something like that. So I'm just going to blot a little bit here on the ground, mainly because then later on you can turn these little white patches into rocks and various other things. So now, oops, that purple keeps on sneaking its way in. I must rearrange my colours so that I don't do it. This is a Payne's grey, and I'm just tabbing, I don't know what that word is, tabbing in. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, because it's all wet, it's actually diffusing all the time. I mean, that water now, you've got some pink from the undercolour, you've got some blue, that's some of it's reached the ground. Now this is where you need a really dry brush. You can take out any excess water because it will puddle at the bottom if you're not careful. You can kind of hide most things. You know, I'll just move that out of the way a minute and get rid of this thing. Right, okay, so there we have the basics. We've got a sky, we've got a mountain, we've got water, and we've got ground. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you leave this now to dry. Keep an eye on it for the next 5 minutes. Watch out for anything happening that you don't like and try and change it with a dry brush. Okay, there's a little thing there. I'll get rid of that later. Okay, so this is the end of this video. Hope you follow it on to the next one, and slowly we'll build. Then there'll be some videos about how to put certain things in, that like boats and trees and various other things that look realistic, okay, and how to work on the mountain. So I hope I see you again. Thank you very much. Bye.